Welcome to G-Man Gaming and Reviews. Today's video is going to be a beginner's guide to Boneraiser Minions. Now, I'm not going to cover absolutely everything because with some of the classes, what I'm going to say isn't really going to apply. But this is more a beginner's guide because this game is absolutely brilliant, but it can be a little bit inaccessible because it is a roguelike game. So I thought I would go through some beginner's tips to help you get into the game, because depending upon at what stage you're playing, the game changes quite a bit. So let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to talk about, that you would talk about in any run, is the minions. So if we go into here, okay, so these are all the skelly minions that you have, right? Now, as you're aware, if you're playing this game, you know, you're a necromancer, right? And the way that the game works is that when you recruit a minion, most of the time you recruit them at level 1, which is the green version. And then when you get another boneraise, you have the ability to... Oh, I might as well go into the game. So basically what you do in this game is you kill enemies, you get bones, and then once you hit 100 bone level, you level up and you get to do a boneraise where you get to raise one minion or get another type of minion, right? And you also have relics in the game that give you like permanent abilities or sometimes temporary abilities, and then you have spells which you cast as spells. So we're just going to go back to talking about minions now. There are a lot of skelly minions that exist. So you've got like ranged minions like your archers. If you hover over them, it'll actually say, like you can see in the top corner, ranged, minion, and skelly, right? Now, the minions of note are the Augur. Now, the reason that the Augur is one of the best skelly minions as a support minion is because once you get it to level 3, you can get the Daemonic version, right? Which is... Where is it? That's weird. Where's the Daemonic version? Ah, it's this one here, right? The reason that this minion is so powerful is because one of these gives you a permanent aura of haste, which is really powerful. And it gets more powerful the more minions that you have. You will notice a big difference between when you have this minion running and when you don't. Now, the thing about demonic minions is that you can only have a maximum of 3 of them. 4 if you get a particular relic. So you can only have a maximum of 3 of them. You really want to make sure that the ones that you pick are really good. The top picks are the Daemonic Augur, the where is it? The Creepy Tangler, the Daemonic Tangler. The reason that this Daemonic Tangler is so good, especially early on, is that it actually now. All Tanglers generate health hearts, I'm pretty certain. Where's the Tangler? Where's the... Why am I having trouble finding the Tangler? Where are you? Ah, here it is. The Tangler is a support minion. At level 3... it grows health hearts as well, which is why it's really useful to have at least one of these, because it actually generates hearts. Now, I will say that later on in the game, once you have unlocked relics that give you healing, it's not as important to have a creep Daemonic Tangler as one of your demonic minions, but the Augur is always useful. That the permanent haste benefits even you, which means that it's absolutely brilliant, the permanent haste. You really only need one of these guys. So one thing that I didn't explain was the upgrade. Like I said, with your regular skelly minions, you can level them up to a level 3 version, and then once you get up to a level 3 version, if you get a hero soul, right, you can level one of your level 3 minions up to a demonic minion. Now, there's a lot of demonic minions. I don't really need to go into all of them because they're basically upgraded versions of the regular skelly minions. They just, with the attack minions, they just do more damage, basically, or they have more of an area of effect. So yeah, I'm not really going to go into them because you got like the Grave Guard and the Ranger. So really, most of them are not really, you're not really going to focus on. I don't really use them that much because in my opinion, it's a waste of a slot unless you have a specific plan in mind. But one of note is the Demonic Doppelganger, because in actual fact, it boosts your own spell power level. So in addition to casting spells, it boosts your own spell power level, which is actually quite large. This one, the Demonic Jester, has the ability to transform you periodically into a snowman, which makes you invulnerable for a certain period of time. But basically, that's the Skelly minions in a nutshell. Most of them just attack. So you've got the Augur, which gives you haste. The Archer. This one, the Jingle Bell Head, that I don't really use very often because you have to level it up in order for it to do damage. Normally what it does is it just, at the lower levels, it just stuns enemies. So it's really not that useful. The Boomer Boozer is another attack minion that at level 3, it lodges, it's a ranged minion that lobs Molotov cocktails, so fire bombs. I don't really tend to use this very much, but there's nothing wrong with it. The Scout Boomeranger, which is basically another ranged minion that throws a boomerang. Not much of note here. One thing that I will say of note is that if you get the demonic version, it actually causes boomerangs to emanate from your main character. But in my opinion, it's not worth a demonic slot, but can be useful. Graveguard is basically just a minion that is a melee minion. The Gaunt Skewer is pretty good for crowd control, you know, as opposed to the Graveguard minion, which is more for dealing with individual enemies. We've got the Creepy Tangler, which we've already discussed. It slows enemies down, but really the big thing about it is that it generates health hearts. And then we've got the Magic Doppelganger minion, and the Magic Doppelganger minion is actually, you're not going to get these very often, but they are very useful because even if you don't upgrade them to the demonic version, they cast spells periodically, and it's random which spell that they cast, but most of the time them casting spells is actually really good. So that's the only thing that I would say at the beginning is that be careful about focusing on these minions too much when you haven't unlocked too many minions, because you can end up in a position where you need to have a decent amount of range of melee, and you need to have a decent amount of minions that attack in order to keep the enemy from you. And this minion doesn't attack all the time. It casts spells periodically. The Widow Warlock is basically a magic minion that blasts a projectile, so basically like a ranged minion. The Jinx Witch is very interesting. It's another support minion, where what it does is it hexes meanies, and it places sigils on the ground, and any enemies that walk into that sigil get affected by it. So at the lower level, it does increase damage, but at level 3, they cast Death and Curse, where one hit can kill. So this is another really good minion. I wouldn't focus on them exclusively, but they're a very good support minion. The Bellow Baddie minion is one that I'm not a big fan of. Simply put, because at level 1, it doesn't do any damage to enemies, right? At level 2, it starts to do damage, but at level 3, it actually heals you when it inflicts damage on enemies. So there is a class in the game, the Vampire class, that absolutely loves these. It's not a super bad minion, but I would focus on other attack minions first, or prioritize other minions before getting this one. The Trapper is a magic minion that really just puts down traps. There is a class that focuses on these, but it's not a minion that I tend to really go after, Just simply put, because I like the support minions. The traps can be useful, but I tend to find that they're not as useful as crowd control. And a lot of the other skelly minions, when you level them up, they do much better crowd control. So it's not a minion that I tend to focus on, but there is a class that really utilizes this. So something to keep in mind. It just places a lot of traps on the ground, basically. Volt Coiler is a ranged minion that does electric damage within a short range. At level 3, it goes between multiple enemies. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of this minion because of how short range it is, but it still has its uses. The next one is the Joker Jester. This is a support minion that I really wouldn't focus on unless... The demonic version is actually very good, but because it can temporarily transform you into a snowman, making you invulnerable for about 10-20 seconds, which is very useful. I think it might be even less than that, but the problem is that it doesn't do enough in terms of support. You know, realistically, it's not really that useful of a minion. But at level 3, it's not a minion that I would prioritize. The last minion is the Unholy Monk. Now, I gotta be honest, the base version is okay. It has a protective aura that reduces your damage by 20%. Not really that useful in the Skelly version. But if you upgrade it to the demonic version, it boosts the attack speed of all demons by 50%, and it summons another demon, which is very useful because it can even summon these Diablo ones that are very powerful, right? That are extremely powerful. So that's the Skelly minions covered. We'll come back to the Bro minions, and then we'll come back to... Okay, so we've got the demonic minions here. Like I said, these are straight upgrades of the... For the most part, with the damage ones, they're straight upgrades of the... They're straight upgrades of the base versions. There are some exceptions, though. So like I said, the Demonic Doppelganger actually boosts your spell power, which can be extremely powerful. There is a class that focuses on these minions. But for the most part, they're just basic upgrades of the ones that I've already discussed are the ones of note. The rest of them are just basic upgrades. So next we come to the Diablo minions. Now, I'm going to be honest, I don't really use these very often. The reason being is that they require you to sacrifice 2 demonic minions, and they take up the slot of 2 demonic minions, and you don't really get a choice of which demonic minions they take up. And normally getting demonic minions is actually quite annoying because you have to level up a minion to level 3, which means you have to do 3 Boneraises, and then you have to get a hero soul to get it up to the demonic version, and then you would have to do that with another minion, get it up to level 3, and then get another hero soul in order to get another hero soul in order to get to the Diablo version. So I've got to be honest, I don't use the Diablo versions almost at all. There is a class that really makes use of them, but for the most part, I don't use them. The reason being is that, like I said, the Demonic Augur is so good. It's so good that realistically, I don't see the point in taking up a slot. Now, these Diablo minions do a tremendous amount of damage, but it's very hard to get to them, and I can't justify having to potentially give up an Augur and the fact that you have to get hero souls in order to get them. Other people might disagree with me on that, but unless you're playing a particular class which can make really use of these, I wouldn't bother with these minions. But that being said, if you have 3 demonic minions and it's going to take a sacrifice of two of the minions that aren't the Demonic Augur, you might as well go for it if you think it's worth it. But I generally love my Augur so much that I generally don't do it, but these minions are very powerful. That being said, if you were going to go down the path where you're going to have Diablo minions, What you might want to do is have multiple augurs at level 3. That would probably be better. Because then you've got the multiple augurs making up for the fact that you don't have the permanent haste. So that is something that you could do. It's not something that I generally do, but I might try it for a run. But generally, it's not something that I would do. So I don't really tend to focus on the Diablo minions. So this one is the magic version that does, like, that makes fire pillars come up. This one has a laser beam that comes out of its eye that goes down a fair bit, that destroys just about everything in its gaze. And this one just has a really big sword, which is the melee version. That's pretty much what they do. Like I said, I don't really tend to focus on them too much. But yeah. So, one thing that I didn't cover was Barrow Boners. So Barrow Boners are like a type of minion that's like a mini minion, right? You can sometimes get lucky and get Barrow Boners through this barrowing band, but normally you're going to get them through relics and stuff like that. So something to keep in mind is that this here will turn 5 Barrow Boners into a random level 3 Skelly minion. Can be very useful, but it is random, so something to keep in mind. This one is, if you get it, is actually really useful later on. And it's really useful with certain classes because it'll give you 2 random fresh Skelly minions, which sometimes can be really useful. It's like rolling the dice, but sometimes it can get you some good things or some additional minions, and it's really useful with classes that like to have lots of minions. The Barrow Boner allows you to fuse 2 Barrow Boners into a Barrow Digger. Not really going to say much about this because realistically, unless you're playing a certain class, I wouldn't bother with Barrow Diggers. The only time that I would bother with them is if you're really trying to focus on your score. Especially if you're trying to get a big score for non-new game plus, I would definitely focus on these guys. But it's random when you get the access to them like it is with the other minions. So something to keep in mind. Alright, we'll come back to these big boys. So next we're going to focus on the Bro Minions. That is these ones here. The ones with Bro in the name. Now, the Bro Minions are unique in that each one, you can only have a certain number of them. And that number is dependent upon, you can raise the number by using certain things in architect mode, which I'll show you later. And you can raise the number of them with certain relics. These are, they're more powerful than the Skelly minions, but you're going to encounter them a lot less often, unless you're playing as a certain class, right? Or certain classes, right? One particular tactic that I tend to like to do is zombie bro minions are actually really good because they can bite other enemies and raise fresh zombie bro minions. One of the strategies to use with these guys is to go into architect mode and to have lots of gravestones, because for every gravestone that you have, it boosts your max number of zombie bro minions by 1 to a maximum of 8 in architect mode. And then once you have at least one of these guys, you wait for it to raise other zombie bro minions by biting human meanies. And then what you do is you wait to get this thing, the Bone Brigley Destinius. Now, what Destinius is, like this one here, is it allows you to raise random minions. So this one raises a random level 3 minion. This one raises 2 random fresh Skelly minions. This one will transform any bro minion, which is these little ones here, into a big bro minion, right? The strategy is you have as many of these zombie bro minions as you can, and then you wait until you get this thing, and then you take it. And what you're hoping is to get any one of these big minions here, not this one. The reason being is you want to get to this thing. Now, so these are big bros. there's two ways to get the big bros. The first is to have at least, in the case of zombie minions, to have at least 3 of them, and then you can fuse 3 bro minions into the other ones. You only need 2. But my strategy is better because once you get zombie bro minions, if your minion cap is high enough, they will automatically raise other zombie bro minions, which means you'll have a fresh supply of zombie bro minions to use in this thing, right? And what you're hoping is to get 3 of these different, one of each different type of big bro minion, so you can then get this bad boy, which is the Brozilla. Brozilla. Now, this is a big bro minion, which means it's the end game for the bro minions. This is the most powerful of the bro minions. You can only have 1 of them most of the time, depending upon which class you're playing. You generally want to go for these minions quite early on. The reason being is that in combination with having a very high zombie bro cap, it's quite easy to get to them. You don't need hero souls to get to this thing. So really, you only require a hero soul for this thing, right? Which means it's there with the right strategy, it's easy to get to these zombie bro minions. It's easy to get quite a few of them, and then use them to get the other big minions, right? And then once you've gotten the other big minions, and you've gotten this big boy, you can still use the same tactic to get other big minions. So something to keep in mind is, even if your cap of, say, Potussi Bros is 1, you can still get 1 big bro, Potussi Bro minion. But in order to get more than that, you would need to have double the capacity. So in order to have 2 of these two of these guys, you would need to have a capacity of 4, I think, most of the time, right? Most of the time, you're only going to be able to access 1 of each big bro minion, at least until you've upgraded some relics. But these guys are more powerful than the Skelly minions in the sense, in terms of what they do. But that's the strategy that I generally recommend to beginners, is try to go into architect mode and put down the gravestone so that you can get a really high amount of zombie bros, so that then you can utilize this strategy. This works really well with where is it? With this relic here, which is the Moon Trinket, because it increases your odds of getting offered Destinious Boneraise. So this will increase the amount of these Boneraises that you actually get, as well as these ones and these ones. So it's really useful for this strategy. Now the good thing about this strategy is you don't really need to do very much to get it. That's the strategy that I would recommend for beginners. Because the zombie bro can infect other and can raise fresh zombie bros, it means it's more of a passive strategy. You just need to get the 1 zombie bro and then just let it do its thing. So with zombie bros, you're going to prioritize these over all the other bros because you're going for this strategy. So basically, we'll talk about the other bros. So this one boosts your max health by 33%. This one heals you. This one basically generates money. This one is an attack minion that, when it's attacking beast minions, gives you occult health and bones. It's not really going to be a thing. So the rest of them are just attack minions, basically. They pretty much all attack with the exception of this one, which is the big version of this one, which basically heals you. Not really much to say here. The big bro versions basically do the same thing as the little bro versions, just more powerful. One thing to note is the Eggy Bro minion. Now, normally you're only going to be able to have 1 of these, right? So what happens is when you raise 1 of these, right, after a certain period of time, it'll hatch into something. It could turn into any random minion, including any random minion, almost. It can turn into any minion. I think I've had one of these turn into one of these once. if I recall. But it can turn into any minion as long as you have the capacity for that minion. One of the good things about this guy is that he actually takes on the forms of all the other minions. So what he'll do is he'll change into different phases, and depending on which phase he's in, he may have the abilities of this guy or this guy. You know, just a more powerful version of them. One other good thing about this minion is that it actually at a certain phase it'll raise 3 minions for you, or any random minions, as if you had 3 of these guys. So that's something to keep in mind. But like I said, it's a good minion to get. It's a good Brozilla. It's a good big minion to get to. Not big minion, like super big minion to get to, because it's easier to get to than the other minions with the right strategy. This one here is useful if you're trying to. This one will actually eat enemies and turn them into gold coins, but apart from that, it's more of a support minion. So basically, most of these, what they do is they just attack enemies, except for this one, which is, yeah, they're all just upgraded versions of the little bro minions. So not much to really say here. So now we're going to come to the giant minions, which are these ones. So you've got the giant fister, which is a melee minion, giant archer, which is a big range minion, and the giant mage, which is the magic minion. This is an upgraded version of the fister, which just does greater range of damage. Basically, these are just upgraded versions. The exception to this is the giant and summoner, which actually, instead of shooting out a magical weapon, actually raises minions. And so does the giantess version of it, which is like the biggest, which is the second biggest. And then you also have the magma gargantuan, which you can only have one of these for the most part, depending upon which class you're playing. This is like the most upgraded version of the giant minion. Now, the thing about giant minions is that the first 2 levels up to here don't require a hero soul, but they do require you to sacrifice potentially 2 skelly minions here, and 1 minion and 1 of these other minions in order to get to it. And then you have to and then these ones require hero souls, right? So you have to sacrifice 1 of these giant minions, and yeah, like I said, so if you use a skelly minion and a giant minion, this one requires you to actually, I think it takes 2. One of these minions. Basically, in order to get to these versions, you have to have the previous versions of the lower level, and you need a hero soul. So in order to get to the highest level of giant minion, which is the magma gargantuan, you're going to need basically 3 hero souls, right? 2 to get 2 minions up to here, 2 giantess minions, and then you'll need another hero soul to get to fuse those 2 into this minion. Yeah, this minion basically shoots down lava balls. It's good area of effect clearing. Like I said, the giant minions, in my opinion, like, there are classes that make them good. They're all damage dealers, right? So there's no support minions amongst them. So that's just something to keep in mind, is that you're going to get them anyway, because you might as well, because you've got a cap of them. There's a relic, which is the giant and the colossal tooth, this one, which if you raise it up to 3 will increase your current cap of giant minions by an extra 3. So you definitely gonna want to get this one. Next, we'll talk about the Meldus minions. Now, Meldus minions are a bit more difficult to get. Oh, we didn't cover the... Oh, sorry. There's some more I had to cover with the giants. Okay, so... Barrow boners have their own upgrade tree. So they can turn into a barrow digger, and then they can go to a barrow behemoth, and then you can fuse a behemoth barrow, which is this thing, and a barrow digger into a barrow miner. I don't generally bother with barrow miners, but if you're trying to get as many points, you might as well go down their path. Now, one unique thing about the Barrow Boner, which is fused, the Behemoth Barrower, which is fused from 3 Barrow Boners, is that he has what's called this thing, the Bone Giant Destinius, which is you can upgrade a Barrow Boner, a Behemoth Barrower, into any random giant minion, which is any of these. Right? So that's another path to go down. If you have a lot of if you have a lot of Behemoth Barrowers, or you've got a lot of Barrow Boners, you might as well try to get them to become Behemoth Barrowers when it becomes available, so you can fuse them into random giant minions. It's another path to go down. With certain classes that tend to have a lot of Barrow Boners, like for instance the Deprived Wretch class that I am, this is a very viable path, but it's something to keep in mind, because it's really the only Destinius bone raise for the giants. Now, when you are bone raising giants, do be aware of what minion you're giving up. You don't want to, if you've only got one Augur, and you want to keep that Augur, don't use it. If the option to use it to raise a giant mage or any of these comes up, don't use it. Unless you think you're going to get one later on. But because of the RNG of this game, you can't guarantee anything. Yeah, so that's something to keep in mind when you're raising giant minions. That you do have to have 2 fresh skelly minions in order to raise them. Now, sometimes it will actually offer you the opportunity to use higher level minions. I think it only does it if there's no other choice. So just keep in mind that sometimes that can happen. The last minion type that we're going to come to in the fight, we're not going to focus on these guys because these are going to get their own video, and these guys as well, is the Meldum minions. The Meldus. Now, basically, there is one support, I think. There's 2 supports, and the rest of them are all attack. This is the melee version. This one is quite interesting because what it does is, it has these persistent balls of destruction going around. It's quite useful in that, but it is quite random in what it hits, so just something to keep in mind. This one is a ranged minion that does a lot of damage. That does a lot of little damage. So basically, the only ones so they're all attack minions. The melee ones obviously attack in melee, and the magic and the range ones attack in range. The exception is the Manic Mime, which mischievously, which basically turns into the other minions of thy legion. Like I said, you're not really going to have an option of which Meldus minions you get because of the way that it works. So generally, you're just going to, the only one that you can guarantee that you can get is this one. The rest of them you can't guarantee. So what's going to happen is this one requires you to merge 2 Skelly minions, and I think one of them has to be level 3 in order to get a Meldus minion. And then what you do is you merge 2 Meldus minions to get any of these, and then you merge. Now this one here, the Meldraise Mega Meldsomasus, that's the one that requires a hero soul. Now, one thing that I didn't cover is, in the game, during a run, you will kill champions, and they will drop hero souls. Do not waste hero souls, right? Unlike other items that drop, they will not come to you. You have to walk directly over a hero soul in order to capture it. Don't capture it until you have something to use it on. This is going to make more sense when we go into here. If we go into Minion Boneways, you'll see what I'm talking about. You've got the Meldus Minion going to a Mighty Meldus Minion and a Hero Soul getting you to the Mega one. And then you've got the same thing here. Level 3. Hero Soul get to here. Hero Soul get to the Diablo Minion. And same thing. Giant Minion forming of 2 Skelly Minions of level 1. A joint of a giant and level 1 Skelly Minion, a Hero Soul to get here. Yeah. So the point is, and then you've got like this one here. So I'm not going to bother with that because that's the other classes. Okay, yeah, so that is the minions in a nutshell in this game. Now, like with the other ones, you have this one here, where it transforms a level 3 minion into a random Meldus minion, which is the Destinious Rate Boneraiser for the Meldus. Can be useful because really with the Meldus minions, you're trying to go for this one. This one is very powerful. It has extremely good crowd control because it shoots like a short range wave that moves out in a straight line, and it just destroys everything in that wave. So it's a very good crowd control. Now, if we go back to giant minions for a second, one minion that I do not recommend, one giant minion that I do not recommend is the Giantess Sinner. The reason being is that it's a ranged minion and it throws bones, but the problem is the arc of the bones often miss things. You can avoid getting it, but I'm not telling you not to get it. If the option to get it is there and you're going for this guy, you should probably get it just to get that guy. But it is one of the weaker ones I have found. So that's the basics of the minions covered. I thought what we would do now is... So basically the way the game works is I've covered the minions, so I skipped a little bit there. So I covered the minions. And now that you understand the minions, so basically the way the game works is you just go around and you gather bones by killing it, by having your minions kill enemies. And then along the way you will get relics and you will get spells. Now, if we go into the bestiary, the flag bearer will always drop a relic. So these flag bearers here are always going to have a lot of minions with them, and the champions as well will drop, the ones that are gold will drop a hero soul, right? So they're the champions, right? Now, like I said, don't waste hero souls because you don't get too many of them. Now, sometimes wizards will drop spells. So that's one thing that I didn't cover. So we'll go through the spells. I'm not really going to focus on every spell because most of them are attack spells. I'll just focus on the ones that are of note. This one here is a little bit dangerous because the bombs can actually hurt you, right? What happens is that when you use this spell, these bombs are trucked away from you in a 360-degree arc. So as long as you are aware of that when you're using them, just be aware. This spell here is one that I tend to avoid, that I tend to banish. Because what it does is, it makes these boulders drop. And the boulders can actually hurt you. The boulders will actually go all the way down the map. So they are very useful in that respect, for clearing away lots of minions, but they can actually hurt you. Confetti Cannon makes all enemies confused, which can give you some time. Yeah, all enemies on the map get confused. And so in other words, they'll just run around randomly. This one here makes you invincible for a certain period of time. Its effect is replicated by the Joker Jester. When you have the Joker Jester, it will do this periodically. But it is something to keep in mind. Now, another one of note is these two. This one causes treasure chests to appear. This one upgrades all treasures and gems. It's very rare that you're actually going to get to use this one to a full effect, but it is useful. This one transfers all nearby enemies into barrow boners, which can be useful, but I tend to find that it's not really that useful. This one here is actually really good because it will sacrifice a barrow boner to random up to level up a minion, right? And depending on your spell power, it could take it from level 1 to level 2 or level 1 to level 3. So something to keep in mind. This one levels up your health, actually increases your health. Sorry, this one drains your health but gives you bones. This one drains your health to summon a horde of bone-finding barrow diggers. It drains your health, but in this game, unless you're really running low on health, it's probably not going to be a problem because you're probably going to get the health back anyway. This one summons a horde of barrow miners temporarily. This one's also temporarily. Spells are all temporary, something to keep in mind for the most part, right? But it reduces your max health by 11. Later on, in a run, you probably don't care about your health being reduced because you've got all these things that are increasing your health, your max health. But it's something to keep in mind. These two heal you. This one gives you occult health, which is like a secondary health bar. So you have health and you have occult health. And when you run out of... when you have occult health, that health will be used up first. Then you actually start taking health damage. This one will give you extra rerolls, which is useful when you're doing Boneraises. This one will cause a roaming traveler to visit you, which is basically gives you a buff or allows you to buy a relic or an item or a spell. This one's really cool. It summons a wizard, a flag bearer, or a champion. This is useful for getting extra relics and hero souls. Something to keep in mind, this is very powerful. You almost always want to take this spell if you have access to it. This one turns all enemies into slimes, which gives you extra gold. This one is actually really cool if you have certain contraptions. So for instance, if I go into Mausoleum Conquest, you'll see here that I've got bushy fruit as the contraption. This actually increases your max health by 20 and boosts and heals you completely. Every time, and they come back over a certain period of time. So this spell here basically makes things grow faster. So that's actually really cool. This one allows you to transform the nearest contraption into another contraption. It's very random. So this is probably something that might be using later on, but early on you're probably not going to care about this one. This one is actually really cool, but you need to use it at the right time. So what this does is it sacrifices a random bro minion to summon a temporary Brozilla. So this is the one way that you can actually increase your cap of Brozillas temporarily. This is one good... where it says, if they have no bro minion, then a big bro minion will do. You almost never want to use up a big bro minion in order to summon this. This is why it's very useful to have a number of zombies in reserve, just to use that spell. Because if you lose a zombie, you don't care, you'll get it back. As long as you have more than one zombie, you don't really care if you lose a zombie, right? They're expendable. Whereas the other bro minions are not, because they take up a boneraise. That's something to keep in mind. The rest of the spells are mostly attack spells. There's nothing really of note apart from them. Conjured bounties will get you more minions. This one here can actually be a lifesaver, because what it does is it basically causes other human minions to raise up to fight for you for a short period of time. This spell can literally turn the tide of you if you're towards the end game of a run and you're dealing with lots of human minions that are really powerful. So it's a very powerful spell to keep in mind. It's useful most of the time, but really this spell can get you out of a jam in the right time. So that's pretty much most of the spells covered. The rest of them are attack spells, or most of them are attack spells. Nothing really of note. Now, okay, we're at 50 minutes. I think we'll just go into the basics of relics, because I've unlocked all of them. If you're a beginner, you probably haven't unlocked them. You're probably not going to have access to some relics for a very long while. But some of them that are really useful are the ones that heal, like Leech and Blades, Occult Pearl. This one drains this you get 1 health for every 5 minis that your melee minions murder. So this one works very good if you've got a lot of melee minions. This one is for ranged minions, for melee minions, for magic minions, sorry. It generates occult health. This one for ranged minions boosts the damage that they do. It's useful, but these are more useful. This one here you want to try to get it early in a run, because late in a run, having your health halved can be really damaging, which can be really problematic. But early on in a run, it's not. So that's something to keep in mind. Is this one, it increases your amount of demonic minions by 1, and it's really useful, but I would really only take it early on, or if you're confident that the amount of health that you have is worth halving. This one, if you don't take it early on, really requires you to actually think about whether or not you're going to take it on. It's not always worth it. The other relic is the Meldus Flame, which increases your chances of being offered Meldus minions, and it boosts your cap. You can level this up to level 3. This one you get really early on, but when you run out of seals, it allows you to use 1 of your max health, which is really nothing. So these ones here are also very useful. The Accursed Term of Bonings and the Accursed Term of Anquities. This one's not as useful, but these ones are extremely useful, because this one you get to choose, you get an extra minion when offered a Boneraise. But if you take that extra minion, you get a curse. It's still worth it even with the curse. Curses are not really that bad. They just can be bad at the wrong time. This one boosts your options, or you get 1 extra relic. Can be really useful. The rest of the relics are more situational depending upon what you're doing. You're going to have a lot of them at the end of the run. This one increased your chances of being offered bone minions. This one I touched on before, increases your chance of being offered the Destinious Boneraises, which, depending on your strategy, I think what I might do is I might give minions their own run when I'm looking at the classes potentially, because you don't really early on, you're not really going to have a lot of minions, a lot of relics unlocked, and the game's not that difficult. The game, once you unlock everything, the game becomes easier, because you know what you've got access to. Because the thing about the game is, it's going to take a while to unlock everything. Because I'm focusing for beginners, we're not really going to go too deep into relics, because you're probably not going to have access to the ones that you want. Later on, when you unlock everything, you're going to actually have access to a lot more relics. Really, those are the things to note for a beginner. So to summarize, the minions that heal, the Bellow Baddie, and the Creepy Tangler. Now, early on in the game, healing is very difficult to come by. So having these minions to heal you can be very useful. These are your only sources of healing early on, for the most part. But yeah, that's pretty much the game in a nutshell for beginners. So pretty much you're just going to be walking around, having your minions kill the enemy minions, getting bones to Boneraise up to unlock more minions, and getting access to relics and spells along the way to buff you. One of the things that I will say about this game is, I think the term that really comes down to it is organized chaos, right? Is when you go into a run, you want to have a strategy of, like, you start with a certain amount of rerolls, right? And what rerolls allow you to do is they allow you to reroll what you're being offered. So very early on, you're going to be relying on rerolls. What I do when I start is I think I might actually just start a game to show you exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, we'll leave it with the Deprived Wretch. Okay. Now, the zombie strategy, you can access it early on, but you'll need to unlock the Architect mode to do it. There's a lot of things to unlock in this game. What you're going to do is you're going to want to start with Boneraise Lore first, and start unlocking these abilities. Heroic Force you're going to want to unlock later, because it makes the game more difficult, but you get more points. So you want to start with Boneraise Lore first, and then what you're going to do is you're going to use the hero souls that you gathered during a run to unlock abilities for each of your classes. So we'll start with the run so I can show you the basics of how you do it. We're going to ignore this because you wouldn't be starting with this, so I'm just going to say... Okay, we're not going to bother with that as well. Okay, cool. So we've got a Boneraise. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is, you'll see here on the left, we've got Seal, we've got 3 Seal, 3 Banish, 3 rerolls. So what that means is banish will stop that thing from being offered again. So if I was to banish grave guards, I wouldn't receive any more of these fresh grave guards anymore as an option. You can banish at level 1. I could also banish this, but realistically you're almost never going to want to banish a level 3 or a level 2. You're going to want to banish level 1 if you are going to be banishing anything for the most part, because sometimes you may get that minion offered at level 2 and level 3, and if you can get it straight without having to go from the beginning, it can still be useful. So just for the sake of simplicity, what I'm going to do is... So I'm going to use my reroll by pressing B. Okay, so now I've been offered a Creepy Tangler, a Joker Jester, a Vault Coiler, and an Eye-Popper Archer. I'm going to take the Creepy Tangler, because that's going to get me my healing. Now, it was boosted up to level 3 automatically because I had these certain items. But normally what you would have had to have done was level them up. So this takes a minion to level 2 where it goes grey, and then level 3 where it goes purple. So now we're going to use the reroll to try to get an Augur. And we didn't get it. Now, I have the option here to raise a Manic Mime that would require me to give up my Creepy Tangler. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to lose my Creepy Tangler. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to banish the Jingle Bell heads because I don't want to get these guys. And we will take a level 1 Vault Coil. I'm not going to explain any of this because you're not going to have it when you first start. Don't worry about these little items here. Cool. Now we got offered a Bro Minion, and you can see to the left, it says 0 of 3. That means 3 is the cap for this particular minion. Could be raised by certain relics, but for the most part, that's the cap. We've run out of rerolls, so we're just going to raise this. Now, you won't normally start with this treasure chest here. Oh, okay, I got offered a relic. Okay. The same thing applies to relic. You will get offered 4 relics, and you can pick one of them. Now, I have 8 rerolls. Now, the reason I have 8 rerolls is that this particular class has a bonus on relics. But let's just say I didn't want to receive calf donors anymore. I could banish that, and then hit the bottle ferret, and I'll never get calf donors as a relic again. Like I said, this game really comes down to organized chaos, where you want to make use of your banishes and your rerolls in order to try to boost your odds of winning. Okay, so I'm gonna keep going until I get a minion. Okay, now we've been offered a giant minion and a Meldus minion. You'll see here that see how this one says merge 2 Skelly minions? One of them has to be a level 3 in order to get a Meldus minion. I don't want to give up my Creepy Tangler, so this one is not gonna. On the right here, you'll see what minions are gonna be used up. I don't really care if I lose these 2, so we will take that. So on the left here, you'll see spells. Not all spells are good. Okay, we got another Boneraiser. So we'll get the Bellow Baddie minion up to level 3. I'm gonna get at least 1 hero soul, and then we will call it a day. Man, really need some rerolls. Okay, we've got a spell. Ooh, yes, this is good. So this is going to give me extra seals and banishes, which can be useful. Now, I didn't cover seals. So the way that seals work is, let's just say there's 2 items that you want, and you can only pick one. So let's just say I wanted this eye-popping archer, and I also want to pick this. So what I could do is I could seal this, so that when I pick this, the next time I have a boneraise, it's going to offer me this archer. So that's how seals work. You could do that with spells and with relics as well. So we're going to raise an eye-popping archer. Sooner or later, I'm going to be offered a champion. Here, okay, there's a flag bearer. He's going to drop a relic. Okay, so now we get to choose from a relic. Loot box allows you to receive 2 random relics, so we'll take that. So we got... Okay. And you just keep going. That's pretty much it. Ah, now we're gonna get a champion. Okay. Now we're gonna get... Okay. Ah, okay, so we got a hero soul now. Now, for me, what happened is that it ended up in this thing, but for you, it'll just be on the map in green, right? So now we take a hero soul, and we have a choice between getting a demonic baddie or a demonic tangler. And you can see here, there's a cap here of 0 to 3. That is the demonic cap minion. So you can only have a maximum of 3 demonic minions. And so you take your level 3 demonic tangler, and you... And that's pretty much it. And that's this game in a nutshell. So now we have our demonic tangler, who's going to be giving health. These are, I would say, the beginner's tips for the game. Now, when you're first starting, it's going to be a little bit hard because you don't have access to the architect mode, but these are some basic strategies to get you going. So thank you for everyone for watching. I really appreciate it. I'd love to hear what your comments on this video were, what you liked, what you didn't like, what questions you have, what I didn't cover, what you'd potentially like me to do in another video, if you have a particular guide, if you have a particular class that you'd like me to do a guide on, etc., all that good stuff. So please subscribe if you haven't already done so, and thank you for watching.